Hey guys, Lunar Complex here, and I'm going to show you what I've been tweaking to the fishing mechanic. A while ago I made a video on a fishing skill and how to make that into RPG Maker MV, and I have definitely updated and revamped it a whole lot. So before I start this video, I want to tell you guys that this heavily goes off of my Zelda Styled Items 1 and Part 2. So if you haven't seen those, it definitely helps to know a little bit of how those work in order to do this as well. Also, one plugin is used for this, only one, and I will show you guys that after this short demonstration. So I'm going to start new game. Like in my Zelda Styled Items, I grabbed all of my equipables and I activated the display items. So I'm going to go ahead and equip the new item I made earlier today called the fishing pole. So now it's already better. We have a fishing pole, so this is great. Although I can't remember if I did before. But yeah, fishing pole added to slot A. Now, if I went ahead and clicked A on the keyboard, you use your fishing pole. You cannot fish here, obviously, because this right here is, you know, it's grass. There's not going to be any land fish unless you want to make land fish, I guess. But we have to stand by water. And now if we hit A, use your fishing pole, you cast out your line. So it's actually fishing. You don't catch anything, sadly. So if I hit B, nothing equipped. Space, enter, those don't do anything. If I face down, I can still fish if I want to by hitting A. Hopefully this time we get something. No, still no. Okay, well, let's try up. Now the graphic is somewhat showing on the land, but you could change the graphic to whatever you want it. And look, we caught a red fish. That's awesome. Let's try it once more and see what happens. Any fish? Bluefish. Oh, we caught a bluefish. Oh, those guesses. All right, so if we look at our items, we see that we have a red and blue fish. And I have a little bit of a smudge kind of on the graphic there, but I mean, that's just a quick change. Nothing too bad there. But yeah, there are many types of fish I have put into this. There's blue, red, green, pink, purple, orange, yellow, and then there's the legendary bright, shadow, and rainbow fish. Now, with this current fishing pole, I guess just call it tier 1 fishing pole or whatever you want to. It can only catch up to it can only catch the colored ones. It cannot catch the legendary bright, shadow, or rainbow. To do that, we have to use a different fishing pole, which I have also acquired. That fishing pole is the rainbow fishing pole, and you can imagine what fish it catches with the rainbow fishing pole. We're going to go ahead and equip it to A, replacing the first one. And we are going to then fish with it. Congratulations, you have just caught a rainbow fish. So yeah, it has 100% chance of catching that, while the other one has a 50% chance of catching nothing, and then I think it's 13% chance for the 3 first, and then it decreases after that. But yeah, one key flaw with this though is if you have both or any 2 poles equipped at the same time, the way I have the event of fishing set up is it's going to automatically take the higher tier 1. Now, this isn't too much of a problem if, for example, in my video game, you can only obtain 1 at a time, and then it removes the lower one by upgrading it. But if you have a higher tier fishing pole equipped with a lower tier, why would you use the lower tier? Unless you're trying to catch more frequently a less tiered fish, I guess. But if I hit B, it just I end up catching a rainbow fish. So it's not really that much of a problem. I can fix it, but I don't see it as that much of an issue, at least in the way I'm going to use this. If you guys think you don't want it to do that, you can ask me how to change it. Alright guys, now I'm going to get into how to properly set this up. So, like I said before, it's very heavily implied that you have all seen my Zelda Styled Items 1 and 2 are a great help to understand kind of how most of these work right here. So, the display, check, hide, A pressed, B pressed, in every single item. And these are pretty lengthy, but they work fine, they work well. Alright, so first things first, the plugin that I used was Orange's custom events. So what this does is it will let you add or copy events to the current map. This is also, it lets you copy from other maps as well. which is what I use as a kind of fishing animation spot. Notice how there are no events lined up here. It just grabs one from whatever map I decided to. Thanks to the author Hudell. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. If I'm not, I'm sorry. I'll put a link in the description to the forum post of this entire plugin. Alright, so for the first thing to note is the new items that I've added for the fish. So we have green to rainbow fish. They're just regular items. I'm sure most of you know exactly how this works. If you're watching this video, you should probably know how this works, but you just have a fish. Occasion main menu. If you wanted to heal you in battle, you could do battle screen and then add a damage of HP damage. No. To heal, you would actually put it in effects here and then recover HP 100% or an actual permanent number, not a percentage based on your HP. All right, and the new items I've added are fishing pole and rainbow fishing pole. Just copied and pasted and then changed a couple things. Now, you're already supposed to know exactly how to add new items to my whole Zelda Styled Items mechanic. So if you do not, please, can't stress this enough, go back to the videos that I have on my channel about them. Now, some of the new features I've added that allow for you to just walk up to some water is, here, I'll first show you this. Instead of having events lined up here with you interacting them with the A button or the B button, I put regions here. So basically wherever you put region 2 is where your player is allowed to fish. So I could put region 2 everywhere and the player will be able to fish everywhere. Now how this happens is through a press, we'll go to the fishing pole. If you guys watched my other video, everything that happens when you press A or B happens in per item right here. So if I had the feather in the A slot and I pressed A, this would display. If I had lenses in A, this would display. Now that I have a fishing pole in A, I have some code here. So you use your fishing pole as the first thing to show. You can obviously just delete that if you want, but I'm just keeping it there for kind of testing purposes. Now, inside this whole fishing pole position 1, which means it's in the slot A, I have 4 conditions. These 4 conditions are based on your player's direction, which way they're facing. This one's facing down, left, we have right, and then up. Basically, it's the same format of every single RPG game where you have this drop down and it's always going to be down, left, right, up, even for the animations in the tile sets. So if the player is facing down, we have to run some checks, and this may get a little bit confusing, but I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. Alright guys, so I have pasted the code I use into a code editor, or whatever you want to call it. It's called, this one's called Sublime. There are many out there like Notepad++ or just Notepad you could use, but this one kind of helps with the visualization here. First, you're going to start with an if statement, and if statements are the same as conditional branches in RPG Maker. So it'd be if, and then the condition that has to be met. So if variable A is equal to 1, then what you're going to do is that stuff. Now, if you wanted to do a condition where if A doesn't equal 1, you could put an else here, and then the else will do that stuff. If A is, say, anything but 1, so if A is 5, it will do whatever is in here, but if it's 1, it will do whatever is in here. And now some of the syntax for JavaScript has you do a double equals. So this right here is basically what I have up here, except with this, and this altered. So up here we have game map.region ID, and then we have the region ID right here, or the position of the region ID we're going to check. So basically game variables value 17. So the 17th variable in our video game. And the 17th variable in our video game happens to be the player X coordinate on the map. The 18th is the player's Y coordinate. Now, in the beginning of all of my games, I have a kind of start I call main loop or game start. And what it does is it's just a common event that's going to run throughout the whole entire game, no matter what. And what this does is it keeps track of the player's coordinates at any given time, so I could just use them whenever I need them. So that's basically what's here. So I'm going to go ahead and type this so it looks a little bit easier. Alright, so I hope this kind of makes things easier to understand. So what this first line is going to do is it's going to check a position based on the player. So if our player is right here. This is currently position, X is 0, 1, 2, 3. Everything in programming starts with 0, by the way, and Y positive goes downward. So we have X0, X1, 2, 3. So 3X, or X equals 3, and then we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4Y. So we get the player's coordinate here with this line right here. Now what we're doing is, since this is when the player looks down, we have to get the region number right here. So to do that, we know where the player is. It's at 3 and 4. We just need to know what 3 and then 4 plus 1 is to get this box. So right here, that's why we have the 1 there. So we have player X, which is 3, player Y, which is 4, but then plus 1. So it's really Y equals 5. And now, since we have $map game map dot region ID, it's gonna tell us what region number it is. And now we're checking if it's equal to 2. So that's all the top line is doing, is when the player is facing down from the player's location, what is the thing in front of it when the player's down, and is that region equal to 2? If it is equal to 2, what we're gonna do is one of the method calls from, or function calls from, Orange's plugin, where we're gonna basically copy event 3, that's what that 3 is there for, from map 1, so from the first map, and your map numbers are down here, by the way, and we're gonna copy that event to the location of the player X, the player Y, Y plus 1. So it's gonna be, again, that same square here, if it has a region number of 2. If it doesn't, we're just going to show by an else here that you cannot fish here. So, for example, if the player was here, we're going to check to see if the region ID in this square right in front of the player, or down in this case, is 2. If it's not 2, we're going to say you cannot fish here. Now you can fish here because that region ID is in fact 2. If I changed it to anything but 2, it would always tell us we cannot fish here. That's basically the extent to the coding this, and I hope this makes it easier to kind of understand how this basically is this, just much easier for us to read. Now let's look at what event I copied over and put here on the map. So if you remember back at this code right here, we said copy event 3 from map 1, but it actually goes to map 1 first. Don't worry about this true. What this true means is, if you in fact type in false and you copy an event onto wherever your character is or something like that, it will keep the event there if you exit the map and reload it. If it's set to true, so true, it will delete the event every time you come back to the map. I already have my event here set to erase itself at the end of this, so it really doesn't matter to me. I don't think. I haven't tried it with false, but I guess just copy this to make sure. But yes, so map 1, so down here it's map 1, event 3, and I have 1, 2, and 3. And you could check your event numbers by just clicking them and then looking down here as well. So if we check out this event, we have, first of all, you'll notice that the condition for this event is a variable condition of fishing pole position. So if we go to fishing pole position right here, if you guys remember from my last video, whenever the fishing pole, or whenever an item is in a slot, it's going to be above 0, because slot A means the item position is 1, and slot B means the item position is 2, and not in a slot or in your inventory is just 0. And likewise, on the second page, we have check for a rainbow pole position. Now, I said earlier that if you have both of these in your slots, it's always going to go to the rainbow one. That is because the very interesting way that this works is very similar to the berry farm thing I was talking about in one of my other videos, is that if all of these pages, or any number of these pages, if any more than one of them have their conditions filled, it will basically pick the last one, because I believe in the game code it loads page 1, which makes sense, and then it loads page 2 after page 1. So if this fills the condition and uses and says this is good to go, it's going to check this one before this even runs. So it just checks positions, and whichever last one is correct, it's just going to use that one. So very interesting mechanic, but I will figure out how to change that if you guys ask if you actually want that changed. I don't see it as a problem, but if you have 5 fishing poles in here, so like 5 in here, it will choose whichever this one is if this one's also equipped in the slots along this one. All right, and along with this, I made my own graphic here. It's very hard to see, but it was a graphic based off of this guy right here. And so I just shrunk the image a bit, made it look like it was kind of on an isometric plane and not just top down like a circle. So they're kind of like ovals. But like I said, you could put any animation there if you want. You just got to make sure it's stepping and it's fixed direction. Just copy these and you should be fine. Priority, I don't think that matters either, because you're just showing an image basically, like an animation. And trigger, you want auto run, definitely. When the player has this condition met, so they have a fishing pole in slot A, and you can't actually get to this event at all without a fishing pole. So these may look redundant to add as variables, but it does help with when you're using a different fishing pole. So what you're gonna do is play a sound bite. So I played miss. So it kind of, sounds like you're casting out a line, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I put something there to make it seem more, realistic, feasible. And then you cast out your line, and basically this halts the text for, it shows everything there. It holds the text for about 1/4 a second. And then this one right here makes it so that you don't wait for user input. So this starts scrolling on the screen, waits 1/4 a second, and then closes by itself. So you don't have to keep hitting enter to fish. You just have to do it. You have to hit A and then enter once. And that first enter is because I left the, you use your fishing pole in the text when you hit the button, when A is pressed or B is pressed. Then we get to the dots, and that's just dots of text that wait, and then, they do the 1 dot, 2 dot, 3 dot thing, and then they repeat. Then what we have is random. Now, random's a variable I always like to put in my video games as the first variable because it is very useful you do so. And also this first page should be used for a lot of common variables like player X, player Y, weather X, weather Y, temp, and then some timekeeping variables. But basically, I'm using random and setting it to any number between 1 and 1,000. If you're interested in knowing the reason why I'm not using 0 and 999 is because the math for me is just easier to do when I want certain percentages, and that's kind of it. It's really preference because there are 1,000 individual numbers, including 1 and 1,000, between 1 and 1,000. It's kind of an inclusively thing or exclusively thing, I guess. It's just know that you can either use this or 0 to 999, if that makes any sense. Sorry if I'm rambling on trying to explain that. But we get down to our first conditional branch, which is all of these have else's except the very last one, which shows if you catch nothing. So up here we have the first one where if random is equal to or less than 130, which is 13% chance. So I kind of wrote comments here to help show exactly what their percentages or outcomes are. And if random is equal to 130, or if it's less than, the lowest being 1, then you catch a green fish. So it's pretty simple, I think. And then you obviously want to make a sound of the fish kind of jumping out, I guess. And then upping the player's inventory by green fish by 1, and then showing that you caught a green fish. We have to put in the else another condition if random is less than or equal to 130 as well, because I have the green, red, and blue fish all 13% chance to catch. But we have to add that 130 onto here, because if random is not less than or equal to 130, meaning it's greater than 130, so it's 131 or any number including up to 1,000, we have to have an else if it's not that number or lower. And in this else, we can't do another random is less than or equal to 130 because it was already true in here. It'll be false by the time it reaches here. So we need to add 130 to it if we want the same kind of percentage. So we have 260 basically. And like before, it's going to play a sound effect. It's going to increment the player's inventory by whatever fish it is. And it's going to show the player, hey, you caught a red fish. Congratulations. Likewise, we're going to go into another else after this if statement that shows us catching a bluefish. Again, 13%. So 13 or so 130 out of 1,000. So we just add 130 onto here. Next, we have a yellow fish we want the player to be able to catch. And this is going to be a 0.5% chance, which means 5 out of 1,000. So we have to add 5 onto the previous number. And so you guys can kind of see where this is going. So if we want a 0.3% chance catch rate, we just add 3 onto there. And this one's the purple fish. Then we have a 0.2 or 2 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 500 if you want to reduce it. And we just add 2 onto 398, which gives us 400. And now we have a 0.1, which is the rarest for this fishing pole, the normal one that you get, which is 1 out of 1,000. And you just add 1 onto 400, and that is the orange fish. And now you may have noticed in this last else of this last random check, we don't have a number or random less than any number, because by this time there are only 500 numbers left. Alright, so I may have accidentally made it rarer to actually catch any but the green, red, blue fish, but that's fine. I meant to make this 5%, 3%, 2%, 1% to make the you didn't catch anything rate 50%. But in this case, it is 59.9% you will not catch anything, and these fish are extremely rare to catch. But that's fine, because this still shows the point in the mechanic of how it all works. So, for example, if I wanted to change some things, I could be like, okay, well, I want this to be a 5% chance catch rate, so I would add 50 to this, and then it would be 440. And then that would increase the chance to catch a yellow fish to 5%. But then I'd have to change these, because these numbers have to always be greater than the previous random number there. And then at the very end of this, you want to make sure you erase the event, because you do not want that event to stay there, and it kind of makes sense that it'll just go away, because it's like pulling in the reel and your bobber is not in the water anymore, so it just cuts this little image animation off. Now the second page, so if you add on any more new fishing poles, this will just tell you which pole you use. This basically runs on whichever pole you're using, whichever highest pole of the two slots you're using, basically. And this has all the same stuff, except I force a catch of a rainbow fish just to kind of show off the point here. And so you catch a rainbow fish, yay. And to get the rainbow lettering, you just have to change every individual letter color, and then rechange it again with is that backslash or forward slash? I can never remember these things. I just know how to use them and when to use them. And then the icon is just there. And then, of course, you have to erase this event, because it's very good to erase the event. You don't want events just staying there forever. Alright, guys, just to tie a little bit of confusion up, if there is any, if we go to A pressed, so we're looking for when an item in slot A is pressed or is used when you hit the A button. We have, again, in our fishing pole position 1, so whichever item it is in position 1 or slot A, we have the show text or whatever. Then we have the 4 conditions I talked about earlier. When the player is facing down, you'll have to increment the Y value by 1 positive number, because in coding I've mentioned going down in the Y axis is actually going up in the numbers. Now, if the player is facing left, you're going to not increment Y at all, but increment X by -1. So they're facing left, they're over here on the left side. If player's facing right, it's going to be positive X side, so the right side. So we're going to go to our variable 17, which is what I have as player X, and increment it by 1 number. So by 1. And then if we have the player facing up, it's going to be -1 to the Y. So that's why there are 2 -1 there. And then nothing's changing to the X, because it's just looking up. It's just going down on the Y axis, which visually to us is 1 up, but is actually -1 in computer speak, language, land, whatever. And I find it interesting that it's all of this right here to just say a message. That is literally just to say a message. They could just do what Hudell did and just put it all into little into one single method, and then just wrap it in parentheses and put commas in between like those two things, 1 and 2. And I don't know why they did it like that. That just seems like too much. But I digress. That is for the fishing pole, and then of course for the rainbow fishing pole, if its position is 1 or if it's in the A slot and you hit A, it's going to check for player facing and then run the same sort of code. Actually, I think it's exactly the same. I want to say it is. Yeah, because the only change to these two fishing poles is, the variable condition. And it's still the same variable. It's just a different condition on the variable. Or the event, I'm sorry. It's still the same event, just a different condition on that variable of the event. But yeah, guys, I hope this was very informative, and I'm sorry if it's a lot to take in to get this working. But like I said before, the most in-depth kind of thing you're going to do after you've already created the Zelda Styled Items, because that could be confusing as well, honestly. It's without a plugin and everything, so you just got to worry about messing with all those common events. But this is kind of the most difficult thing you'd have to know, and you guys should really check out that link, because you could do so much more than just copying events over from other maps. You can fill up entire regions if you wanted to with this plugin. So hope you guys at least enjoyed, and see you next time.